Welcome back, my students, to a brand new episode of Comic Class. In today's lesson, we're be looking at Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's The Amazing Spider-Man issue 19. And this one's called Spidey Strikes Back. And yeah, it's going to be a really fun issue to talk about. So without further ado, let's jump right into today's story. Let's go. Real quick, guys, if you want to help me get more videos out faster, you can donate to the channel at the Cash App down below. This helps me treat these videos more like a job and will help the channel and videos to grow and come out more often. I appreciate anyone who donates or doesn't donate, and don't feel like you have to be a fan of the channel. You can still show your support by liking and commenting on the video, and with that out of the way, hope you enjoyed the video. So this story pretty much has Spider-Man start off the issue with him taking on different crimes. And he basically is just beating up like criminals on the streets. And we get to see that some man talks to J. Jonah Jameson, basically talking about Spider-Man's recent adventures, basically. Which gets J. Jonah Jameson kind of mad that Spider-Man's getting more into the public view, you know, in a good light, I guess. And yeah, so we also get to see that the Human Torch basically is flying out in New York City when he's attacked by the Enforcers, and a fight ensues. And the Enforcers aren't too hard to fight against, but the Sandman basically surprise attacks the Human Torch and gets his sand all over him, basically taking out the flames that has, you know, Johnny ablaze, basically. And basically, you know, he puts his sand over him and snuffs out the flames, and it's a pretty interesting counter to the Human Torch's flames. I would not have thought of using Sandman against him, but that's really cool. And we get to see that Peter basically comes back to his house, and he has dinner basically with Aunt May, and the next day we get to see him basically just hanging out with his classmates at school, and that, you know, these little scenes are pretty cool to see with Peter just being a regular kid. Later on in the day, he actually does start to thwart, I guess, a robbery or something. And he basically gets to a fight with the Enforcers where they try to, I guess, surprise attack him. And Spider-Man's able to make it out of there without, you know, being beaten up and, you know, captured or anything like that. Now we get to see that Peter meets Betty's new boyfriend. Basically, his name is Ned Leeds. I believe that he has some ties to the Hobgoblin in the future, so this is really interesting that we're getting an introduction to this character this early on in Spider-Man's comic history. And Betty basically admits to herself that she was hoping that Ned would make Peter jealous, so it seems that we're still dealing with some relationship shenanigans and stuff like that with these two. Now, J. Jonah Jameson basically comes out and it seems like he's mad about something. And, you know, that's just like normal J. Jonah Jameson. Now, we get to see that J. Jonah Jameson basically wants Peter Parker to get more photos of Spider-Man. And basically, you know, from the last issue where he said that you didn't want pictures of him anymore, it seems like with all this good publicity that Spider-Man's, you know, starting to get, that he's gonna, you know, want those photos again for Peter that only Peter can get because he is, you know, Spider-Man. Now, the Human Torch basically captures some type of capsule device, and he's not able to flame on because of not having enough oxygen, I guess, in the tank or something like that. And yeah, so Spider-Man basically goes out of J. Jonah Jameson's office, and he basically goes to try to figure out where exactly the Human Torch is at by getting one of the lower minions of the Sandman, I guess, and the Enforcers. So eventually Spider-Man gets the information he needs, and he basically goes to where the Human Torch is being held at, and Sandman basically tricks Spider-Man into thinking that it's not being guarded at all with sand on the top of the capsule. And Sandman basically is the sand that's on the capsule on the top of the lid. And he basically attacks Spider-Man. And Spider-Man basically has to fight against the Enforcers plus Sandman. And we get a lot of cool action panels with Sandman using his shape-shifting sand abilities, which are always cool to see. And eventually, Spider-Man is fighting, I think his name's Ox or something. And he does like this type of like cannonball type move and Spider-Man's able to break the Human Torch out, at least break the capsule, which allows Johnny to flame on. And Johnny basically joins the fight, and they make quick work of, you know, all the enforcers. Eventually it comes down to just Sandman, and he basically tries to trap him in some type of like a wire or something, and the Human Torch is basically able to flame on and kind of like makes fun of Spider-Man, because Spider-Man thinks he's kind of useless right now because he couldn't get out of that capsule. But that's where the Human Torch basically reveals that there wasn't like enough air or something, oxygen in the tank, and that's why he couldn't flame on. But now he can flame on just fine. And they basically get out of the type of wire trap that the Sandman had, and the Sandman basically used so much of its energy that he was actually able to be caught by like normal cops, like these two normal cops. So that was kind of lame, but basically we get to see that, you know, the Spider-Man and the Human Torch, they basically have captured the Sandman. Basically, you know, they got him to get captured, and this leads us into the end of the issue with J. Jonah Jameson basically still mad, and with Peter basically giving him photos of Spider-Man and the Human Torch versus the Sandman and the Enforcers. And this basically puts Peter in good standing with J. Jonah Jameson, which is really cool. We also get to see that Peter's relationship with Betty Brant and Ned Leeds is pretty interesting as well, in that Peter still doesn't show any signs of jealousy, which is what Betty had wanted. So that's really interesting. We'll see how that all plays out in the future. And we also get to see that there's someone that is keeping track of Peter Parker as he's walking home. And it seems like this will be a major plot point, because someone had hired this guy that we don't get to see in Shadow at the end, and it'll get revealed in this issue on who exactly the Shadow person is. And that's basically how the issue ends. And yeah, that was Stan Lee Steve Ditko's The Amazing Spider-Man issue 19, titled Spidey Strikes Back. Overall, a really good issue. It doesn't really have any ties to what we saw in issue 18, kind of like its own standalone story, but it does introduce some plot threads that go into issue 20 and issue 21, I believe, which can be very important, with introducing some new characters and, you know, to the Spider-Man lore. And overall is a good addition to the Stan Lee and Steve Ditko run of Spider-Man stories. But that's going to be all. If you enjoyed the video, go check out the previous 18 issues of this run. Also check out Amazing Fantasy 15 as well, which is the start. All of it is in the playlist of the Stan Lee Steve Ditko Spider-Man playlist. And we're going to continue with this run, and we're going to try finishing it off hopefully in this month in November. That way we can be jumping into other comic stories I want to be covering on the channel, as well as maybe jumping into the John Romita Sr. era. If you guys are enjoying the videos and want that, be sure to comment down below if you want us to see a continuation of us covering that era, which happens right after the Ditko and Lee run. That's going to be all, guys. Until the next video, God bless you. Until the next lesson, keep on reading those